teacher of this work out in Chicago area. Actually, calling to the show, he had been to an intensive and tapped into the Beatitudes, so he and I created, Mark Hattis, a conversation about the Beatitudes, something he'd really picked up on, the Aramaic Beatitudes, when he was at Heartland. And so we had a really great conversation over a period of a couple of shows. So that will be, if you missed the show that was played on Friday, you might want to tap into and hear that, and that'll prep you for tomorrow. And then I'll be flying into Sarasota. And if you received the flyer from us, the flyer was actually made up by the facility where we're doing the workshop, and whoever made the flyer just didn't put it together in a sane way, a proper way. So what we've done, and they put a price on it that was kind of outrageous for what we do. Normally, when we travel, over the last 40 years, our travel workshops have been free, and at least the information workshops. And at the end of each workshop, we invite people, let them know the reason they're free is we're committed to giving it away. Whether you've got money or not is irrelevant. And if you like what you got, because while we do it free, we haven't figured out how to do it for nothing. It takes money to get out there and be on the road and all the things that go along with a 20,000-page website and a web app, and et cetera, et cetera. So we invite people to donate to support it. And there is one workshop over the years that we found that if we didn't charge for it, that people really didn't participate to the fullest. And it's a process-oriented workshop. It's an all-day. We'll actually start at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday and go through till sometime. Usually it completes between 5 and 6. And it's a pretty deep process workshop. We do mind shifters and still point breathing. So we introduce and explain the whole concept of a mind shifter, which is a really powerful tool for accessing unconscious dynamics, for resonating what's hidden in the mind and getting it stirred up. And then we'll pair people up. And so each person will get some training in how to facilitate the still point breathing process, and will be facilitated in breathing. So each person will get an experience of that. We'll do some process work, and usually that workshop finishes sometime between 5 and 6 in the evening. And so we'll be doing that on Saturday, and that one always has been a fee-based workshop. We did try in the early days doing it free with just doing the donation type of thing, but what we found was that when you give people information, okay, they'll hang around with it and play with it. But when you ask people to start really digging in, if they're not invested, then it's too easy when stuff starts to come up to find somebody to blame and turn tail and run away. So there's that minimal fee for an all-day workshop. And actually the facility where we were doing it, they had set up the flyer and the fee structure and all, and they had it set up at $325. And I just felt like that was out of line. And so we've restructured it, gone back to the price we were charging in 2000. Roll back prices. We're going to play like Walmart. We're going to roll back our prices. And so if you want to join us for that, and Jeannie did just put a flyer out on the website. And if you're on our mailing list, she sent out a newsletter, about an hour ago, sweetie, with the article on healing conflict. And we would love your feedback on that. We're looking at different venues that we might put that out there. I put it, if you read or listened to us read it, I put a sort of a precursor on it today before it went out, and inviting people, because we are definitely in this world of instant everything. Everybody wants instant enlightenment. They want instant healing. They want a pill, they want a drug so they don't have to feel, they don't want to deal with life. I mean, it's kind of the game of the world. And so we started out, the article will be continuously edited, so it's going to be on the website. You can download a PDF of it or read it on the website. And as we update it, it will be updated there. But here's what I wrote as an introduction, inviting people to look at and invest some time in going to a deeper level. In a world inundated by conflict, strife, and war, where the world has trained us to have an attention span of a gnat, we're addressing an issue that experts estimate that in the last 6,000 years have cost approximately $2 billion lives. There is no pill, no instant fix for that. A deep shift in our beliefs about ourselves, how our minds work, and how the world actually works is going to need to be, going to be needed in order to create a different legacy for our future generations. It can be done. In my half-century plus of developing and supporting people using these tools and understanding what's herein presented, I've watched the troubled, the violent, the divorcing, the addicted, and the imprisoned turn their lives around using the ancient and modern materials correlated here. To make it easy to begin, you can either read or listen to this article. And at the end of the article, there's contact information for free personal support, links to free video and audio instruction. And so this is version 5.1.24. And so there is if you're on our mailing list in your email, there is a copy of that article, a link to the page where it's, and if you want to keep that link, you can check back on it, on what the updates will be. I have several other pieces. You know, I've been working on it for a while, and I have several other pieces that I want to integrate. But with this workshop happening this weekend, we really need to get the newsletter out. So it's there. And if you have any feedback, any thoughts, pieces that don't make sense to you, pieces that need more explanation, I'd really appreciate the support of anybody and everybody going over it with a fine-tooth comb and giving us feedback on, this piece works, that doesn't. Before we take it to the next level, I'm not sure how we're going to put it out there elsewhere. It's about 15 pages. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes to read. We have included a link from reading it on the radio show yesterday, so you can do that easily by listening or listening and reading along. And, you know, with such an important issue, I'm hoping that there'll at least be a quantum of people who will say, yeah, I'm going to invest some time here and really start to integrate what will shift my mind. And of course, as I've said before, I really trust the input from this man Yeshua 2,000 years ago, the physicist who said, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf, recognizing that he was not talking about bread, but he was talking about us as human beings. And that if enough people, and it's only going to take a small number, if enough people will actually dig in and do the work, then grounding the energy of that work on the earth, bringing it into a strong enough, coherent field shared by a number of people around the globe, will bring a shift and make available that deeper insight that overcomes a perceptual disability that most people function from of, you know, we live separate from each other, there's you and there's me, and of course you're the problem in my life. So hopefully we can inspire enough people to move in the direction of, the technology really is available for me to make this kind of shift in my mind. And we would ask you that you would pass the article on. We would ask you if you've got anywhere to post it, if you've got a website, if you've got a Facebook page, if you've got an Instagram channel, whatever. We'd ask you to post it, spread it around, and invite people to really work with it. Also, we do have Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing, or pardon me, Mind Shifters support groups. And if you feel like it's your place in the world to bring this work forward on another level, then we'd invite you to start a group. And, you know, people say, well, but I'm not qualified. Well, if you know that forgiveness means a tool with which I go inside myself and remove from myself that trauma that I haven't faced, if you know that, you know more than 99.9999999% of the professionals who work in the arena of forgiveness. You know more than they do, because the whole world has this belief. Yes, lots of people talk about, yeah, it's an internal process, but then they go on and they talk about, and how did they make you feel, and now you need to forgive them, or you need to forgive yourself. If somebody's telling you you need to forgive them or you need to forgive yourself, then please recognize they're working with an incorrect definition of the word forgive. How do you destroy a culture? Well, Vladimir Lenin, the man who's probably responsible for more deaths on planet Earth than anybody in history, said the way you destroy a culture is to change the meaning of its words. When they changed the word forgive and substituted the definition of pardoning for forgiveness, that is, I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, forgiveness was disappeared from the planet. And my offering is, that means that forgiveness has been gone from the planet for thousands of years. You know? And when you stop and think, and it was a shocking number to me, it was a piece of research I hadn't done before. You know, I had worked for several years. Jeannie had done some work with violence when she was in school, and she had some numbers that went back 75 years or so ago. But in doing this article, I went and started doing more research on how many people do we really put to death in this planet in war. And it's shocking when you think 2 billion lives ended because people don't understand forgiveness. People don't understand that their trauma is an internal experience that they externalize and pretend it's out there, and the only way they can conceive of getting rid of dampening their pain is by killing somebody. And then in killing somebody, they've simply added to their trauma and their pain and go deeper and deeper into the insanity. Somewhere this cycle has to stop. Somewhere we have to realize who we are. And if we're going to leave a planet that has some modicum of serenity and possibility of peace, then we're going to have to do some work. We're going to have to make some changes. So that article is my latest effort in putting that out to the world. I hope it fits. I hope it makes sense for you. I hope if there's any piece of it that doesn't make sense or that isn't complete, that you will drop me a note. And you can drop it to Jeannie at her email, which is jeanie@whyagain.org. And I'm really seriously looking for your feedback. Any holes you can punch in it, anywhere that it doesn't make sense, or anywhere that it doesn't seem complete, that it doesn't, you know, it's hard for me, being as close to this as I have been for over a half a century. There's some things that my mind, just without even my conscious awareness, assumes. And so I don't hear, of course, things the same way that others do. So I'm hoping that this is detailed enough that it helps people to build brain cells and to understand this process of projection, externalization, and forgiveness. That forgiveness is how I go inside myself and remove trauma from myself so that I live literally as the active presence of love, independent of circumstances. And if there's a circumstance that seems to cause me pain, then I need to stop my denial, activate the forgiveness process, go inside and find the part of me that's holding that pain, and rather than letting somebody else off the hook for it, learn how to remove that energetic pattern from my own structure. And of course, if you're the early adopter, that means there's a significant amount of work to be done. And it can be done. And every person who steps up to the plate and says, okay, I'm going to take on that challenge, I'm going to do my work, and or I'm going to help others to do their work. And again, you don't have to be a master. You don't have to be an expert at the forgiveness process to support others in doing it as well as yourself. In fact, Richard Bach in his book Illusions, a great book if you haven't read it, says, we teach best that which we most need to learn. So here I am, I'm in my 43rd or 44th year in specifically working with first century Aramaic forgiveness, so I guess there's more I need to learn about it. I know that for me, I have achieved states that we talk about that result from forgiveness far beyond anything I ever conceived of in terms of my own personal process over just the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm finding that literally day by day there is a deepening that is happening for me personally that I've never experienced before. And so it is a process. It's not over in a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years. I've been at it almost 50. And the rewards are beyond what I ever could have imagined. This state of serenity, even in the midst of turmoil and challenge, is worth every minute that's been invested in it. So I invite you to pass it on. Give us your feedback. If you read the article and you say, well, you know, Michael, when you radio show 2 years ago, you talked about this, and this piece would really fit in there, I'd love to hear that. And we'll certainly consider and look at doing it. You know, that's basically the way that Why Is This Happening to Me Again was written. Literally, I sent it out to dozens of different people and got their feedback. And the pieces of the puzzle that came together along the way came from interaction with you. So know that you're appreciated, and know that we are going to do everything we can to make this available to every mind, heart, and being on the earth. And we invite your support. Pass it on. Make it available to somebody else. So, Ms. Jeannie, we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
We do have a hand up. And I'll just say, you know, if you're on the mailing list, you actually got 2 emails back to back just about. One of them is mostly just about the Florida trip and the quantum steel point that Michael offers. The other one is the article. So they kind of cross each other, but you've got 2 out there, and I hope you read them. And we do have a hand up, and I am so glad she called in. I've been emailing back and forth with Colleen. Area code 508, you're on the air.
Hello.
Hey, Colleen, welcome.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Glad you're here. How can we support you?
Well, I'm struggling a bit with I'm loving the practice as far as my struggles with other people. I spent most of my life blaming other people for the way that I felt and that sort of thing. I found the course.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you. I found the Course in Miracles a couple years back, and that kind of helped me at least to straighten things out with other people and the way, you know, feeling attacked and working all that out in a way that, I mean, I'm not obviously not perfect at it, but I'm a lot better at not carrying around the anger and at turning around and looking at, you know, how I'm responding, you know, they're just triggering something that is within me. And I get that.
Right. Nice.
What I'm struggling with and what I can't seem to figure out through my own personal studies and reading is my quarrels with myself. So I'm a person who, like, it's like 15 years ago, I was under the influence of both alcohol and opioids. I had a back surgery a year prior, spinal fusion. I was on a whole lot of medications, and I got addicted to them. So a year after the surgery, I caused a car accident. One of the people in the other car died. This man, and you know, I awaited trial for like 3 years. Yeah, and I had 2 young children. Well, you know, not my daughter was a teenager. Whatever. I had children at the time. I had the house. I had the nice car. I had the good job. I had all the things that I had wanted. So this happened, and you know, I waited trial for 3 years. Went to trial. Was sentenced to 6 to 8 years in state prison. I served that time. I went up for parole. The family, you know, came and basically called me a murderer, and I didn't. I broke into tears. I couldn't even argue with them. I don't know. I didn't have anything to say about that. So I spent an additional year. And then through just the way prison works, good time and all that stuff, I was released, you know, without parole, put on a 10-year probation. So it's probably been, well, that was 2018. So when I
Right.
was released, I was sued, obviously. So I'd have a wrongful death suit that I pay them every month. I'm forbidden from contacting the family in any way, so I pay through a lawyer. And I make a phone call every morning to my probation to see if I have an alcohol test, because this was way before the opiate epidemic. This was in 2009. So even though I stated in trial that I was on this medication because it was prescribed to me, it wasn't a part of my probation. It's just the alcohol that they were really looking at that point.
Right.
But I knew it was a problem, so I haven't done those things. But so anyway, yeah. So here I sit, 15 so years later, and I just can't. I don't know how to. I don't know how to let that go. I don't know how to let go of the shame. I mean, how do I walk around and say it's okay that I killed this man? It's not.
Yeah.
How do I walk around and say his wife's loss, his daughter's loss, all of that doesn't matter? My own children that I had to leave and abandon for 6 years that had totally different lives because of this. So many people that I hurt.
It's a lot of impacts.
So this is the problem that I'm having as I try to work on these things. And the worksheets, by the way, are amazing. They're helping me practice my thinking that I was trying to practice in the course, but I love the worksheets. They're helping a lot. But the ones with myself, well, Jeannie just helped me with one a little more, so I'm kind of getting it a little more. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm isolating myself, and like I used to have so many friends, and I had relationships, and I had all these things, and I have a family, and they're very supportive, and thank God, and I work with them, and I have those relationships, and those are actually a lot better. I just can't reach out. It's like I don't deserve love in my life. I don't deserve.
I hear you. I hear you. So the first thing I want to say is I'm glad you reached out to us. And, we are all human, and we've all done some pretty crazy things that we, in the human world, deserve all kinds of punishment and hell for. That's the way we've been trained. And my input would be to recognize, first and foremost, that you're dealing with, one of the biggest burdens that anybody could carry. I mean, I hear all of the aspects of this that resonate, pain realities that are just huge. And this may sound a little bit trite, but there's an old story that says, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. If you try to tackle this huge complex of issues all in one bite, it's going to be overwhelmed. And so my offering would be that what you're going to need to do is to break this down one piece at a time to work through all of the aspects. I can certainly hear and understand the guilt, the self-condemnation, the I don't deserve, the overwhelm. I mean, it's just like, it's monstrous. I hear it loud and clear. And the first message that I'd like to offer is that you don't deserve to be loved, but you are love. When you bring that into the equation, you made mistakes, I've made mistakes. I don't know anybody that hasn't made mistakes. And none of us know all of the ramifications of the mistakes that we've made. You're confronted pretty strongly with some of yours. I hear that. And when you recognize what you lost due to alcohol and drugs, and that was the awareness of yourself as a human being, and to recognize that you deserve to be cared for and approved of, not because of any conditions that you could ever fulfill, but simply because you are a human being. Simply because the Creator put the breath of life in you. You are created as the active presence of love. And your work and your practice is going to be to bring that back into your mind, back into your body, back into your family system, and the challenges that you were genetically handed as a kid that led to the kind of pain. You know, over the years I've worked with a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts. And my offering is that the only reason people drink or drug is because there's unconscious pain. Pain we don't even know is there, but we do experience relief from it when we use the alcohol or the drug. And, you know, you're going to have to take this one step at a time to dissolve all of the thought disorders related to what the world tells you and what you've told yourself you deserve because of what your mind classifies as this terrible thing that you've done. It's a pretty heavy-duty thing, and the cost has been high in the world, no question about it. But that doesn't change the fact of who you are, and that what needs to be engaged by you is the forgiveness of guilt. You know, when I hear the level of guilt and the rationale, which is certainly there for the guilt, I could guarantee that if you go back before any of that ever happened, you probably knew guilt fairly well. Would that be accurate?
Before all I had felt about things.
If you look at your family system, you look at the culture you were raised in, how much guilt was there?
I think I put it on more people before this happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it was actually looked at other people's failures differently after I made this big one of my own.
Right.
So I don't know that I held as well, at least consciously held as much guilt before all this. I feel like I did spend a lot of time blaming things on other people. Like my mother was a huge target, you know, and it's right. Funny because now things are great with her. I don't have any you know, problems with her anymore.
Sweet.
But yeah, but it was, you know, a sad way to have to get there. But
So when we're putting guilt, quote unquote, on other people, it's because we're carrying the load of guilt and we're trying to dissociate from our own guilt.
Okay, well then that being
Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely had a ton of guilt because I was putting it on a lot of people.
Right. So if I have a ton of guilt and Bill comes along and Bill does something that violates the goal I have, boy, I got a load of guilt for him. And if Hortense comes along, I got a load for her and Bill and Mary, and, you know, I've got enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah,
and
that's fair to say.
That means that that's in my genes, in my family system, and in my structure.
Okay, yes,
and
definitely then.
So that would be part of the energy that, quote unquote, drove you to drink.
Well, yeah, and I was always told, I mean, my biological father died when I was a month old, and I was told many stories of his really, like, raving alcoholism, as the quote went, and just hurting my mom a lot. And there was some things when I was a teenager, you're just like him, you know, stuff like this. So
that's what you're going to need to forgive. When you forgive as to those stories you were told, the genetic inheritance that you had, and the energetic patterns that, quote unquote, drove you to drink, then you can be free of your guilt. And then you will be able to pardon yourself for the error that you made. You'll be able to truly bring a deep presence of love forward and offer it, even though you're prohibited from communicating with the family. You'll be able to, from a space of connected love, bring a deep form of apology forward to that family, to the gentleman who died in that accident. And as you're able to do that, that will reach into still a deeper layer of your own healing. And as you free yourself, remember that forgiveness You know, the culture teaches us forgiveness is about how I let somebody else or myself off the hook for the terrible things that I've done. And that kind of so-called forgiveness is actually Greek pardoning, and while it's a nice thing to do, it's got nothing to do with forgiveness. So each worksheet that you do in this arena, going back to, you know, I would suggest that something that will probably be very beneficial for you to do would be to look at those people who used to say to you how much you were like Dad, and you do some forgiveness worksheets around them. I would suggest that if you imagine yourself from the stories that you've heard about Dad, that you imagine yourself as Dad and do some of the forgiveness work as though you were actually your father. Okay. Then you'll clear a whole other layer of that underlying trauma that led to the circumstance that you're talking about. And as you let go of the underpinnings of that, then the whole structure of guilt and blame in your mind, both for yourself and others, will disappear, and you replace that with responsibility, which I'm hearing you're very clear. I really screwed up. I'm taking responsibility for what I've done and responsibility for the pain that I've caused in the world. And when I can do that, instead of from a place of self-blame, self-guilt, and being wrong, when I can do that from a place of responsibility, then I can remove those energetic patterns from my mind, from my body, from my genes, from my family system, and from the culture I was raised in. And the benefit of doing that will be far beyond all of the harm caused by your actions. Okay. And you'll be able to show up in your own mind and body as the presence of love that you are. Will you have the memory of what happened? Yes. But you won't project the guilt that you're now carrying, the pain, the trauma, the self-condemnation that you're now carrying. As you free yourself of that, that will disappear, and you'll be able to stand with that memory as the presence of love, but because you've forgiven all of the trauma-based energy around it, it will be another memory in your mind. And that's going to transform everything in your life, would be my offering. And not only transform everything in your life, but though your father is not in his body anymore, it will transform his life. It will transform your relationship with your mother on another level. You will free your children from that burden.
Yes. They definitely...
And the benefits that will be spread around in the world will be beyond what you could even imagine. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It just seems a little lofty.
It's huge. Yes. I mean, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's just, I hear you loud and clear. I mean, that's just beyond what is beyond. I hear you loud and clear. And my invitation would be, as you do this work, that you really consciously, purposely have patience with yourself and recognize, Yeshua talks about in his work that in order for you to live, you have to die, which of course doesn't make a lot of sense unless you realize that inside of us, there are at least two of us, every one. There are at least two of us in every one of us. There's who I really am as the created essence of love, the truth about me, and then there's the fraudulent self, the one that's based in pain and trauma and all the power person messages I was given and all the things that I've ever done wrong. As you do your forgiveness work, you're going to be getting rid of that self. You're going to be freeing yourself from that self. And then you show up purely as the created essence that you are. And free of judgment and guilt about yourself, you'll simply be able to stand in your own physiology as the active presence of love, and having the courage to take on something this big. you're going to make a difference in the world. And when I say make a difference, I mean you're going to open an energy space. You know, you listen to the Course in Miracles, it says, when you are healed, you are never healed alone. These thought disorders with which you burden yourself are simply energetic patterns that have been going on in the earth for too long, and the fact that you've stepped up to this level of intensity with the courage to face it and remove those energetic patterns is monumental and will be a gift to all of humanity. That would be my offering. And I'm glad that you gathered the courage to write to Jeannie and to pick up the phone and call in.
Thank you for taking my call. And again, for the work,
and as you,
because I put this right here, like I know, they tells me to, you know, only one thought at a time, or only one fear, like only one emotion at a time. I think I was jumbling everything up.
Yeah, well, that's one of the games that the non-being mind plays is, oh, well, I'll just stay in overwhelm, that I don't have to do anything. But as you clarify your process and realize, you know, eat the elephant one bite at a time, do one piece of work, and there'll be times, and I think it's kind of in the scriptures, there's a story about the flood where we just get, overwhelmed. That's still going to be part of the process. But as you weaken those energetic patterns in yourself and strengthen the pattern of being, you'll be making a transformation that contributes to all the world. Again, when you're healed, you're never healed alone. And the different worksheets that I've suggested doing as Dad, as yourself at younger times when you were told these things about yourself, the really key thing in each worksheet is identifying exactly what the goal is. And so if there's any aspect of that work when you're working on it that, gee, I'm not sure what my goal, I'm not sure what to work on here, please call the show, you know, tell us what it is that you're focused on, what you're working on. And, you know, it might be, you know, gee, as a kid, and I'm thinking about Dad and what I was told about Dad and how terrible he was and how brutal he was with Mom. And, you know, my goal was for him to have been gentle and caring with my mom. That would be one worksheet. My goal might have been for him to have lived and been a sterling father for me. That would be another goal that would clean out another part of my mind. Another goal that I might hold for him is that he would have been a model of love and caring in the world. And as I work on each piece of that, I'll be freeing my multi-generational database called the body-mind unit of the traumas around each of those goals. And so there'll be many different shades of goals, and each one will produce a different healing result. And overall, the whole gestalt of it is what's going to lead you to a space where you can look yourself in the eye, acknowledge yourself as a created essence of love, and know that that's who you are. Yep, I got a history, but I'm not my history. I'm a being created in the image and likeness of the Creator, and therefore experience myself as the presence of love. So that's the space I hold for you, and again, anywhere along the way, and you're probably going to do a lot of complex, you know, issues and circumstances, and anywhere you need support in getting through a piece of the worksheet, or anywhere that you need support in identifying exactly what the goal is in the circumstance, please feel free to contact us and let us support you in that. And we are absolutely honored and delighted to do that and honor you as who you are.
Thank you.
As a human being.
The fact that I have that support is just amazing. So I probably will take you up on that because I'm going to need it.
So you've got it 2,000%. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Anything else we can support you with at this moment? Anything else come to mind?
I think, I mean, honestly, the fact that that just came out about my dad anyway, like my bio dad, I like to say, because I have a stepfather who's, you know, been there.
Right.
But, and that honestly hasn't come out when I've told the story that much in the past, so it's kind of interesting to me that it came out on this call, and I think that's
going to be a big piece of work.
I think so.
Well, you know, one of the things... Go ahead.
I was just going to say I don't have anything else really right now because I feel like I'm going to start on that, and I'm going to take your advice if I get stuck to help, and now that you're offering.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, one of the things that that I speak about in my intensives, one of the pieces of the puzzle that I offer the first night of the intensive to people actually is that one of the objectives of, let's say, for instance, an intensive, and it's the same with this radio show, is to create a safe space. Because one of the reasons why we hide things from ourselves is, back when we were 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 or 30 or whatever it was, we didn't have a space of safety to be able to bring those energies out, so we had to hide them even from ourselves. And so once we step into that space of safety, then all of a sudden we find ourselves able to pull out things. Geez, I didn't even know that was there. I didn't even know that was there to be worked on. And there, that's why we talk about the unconscious mind. If we talk to the average psychologist today, they'll tell you 80, 90, 95, perhaps as much as 98% of our thinking, the cycling of information in the mind, is unconscious. And so as you get safer and safer, you'll find the deeper parts of your own unconscious. And when you can bring it forward, Carl Jung says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. You're approaching some pretty heavy-duty stuff that directed your life, and it isn't your fate. As you become conscious of it, each piece of it, literally as an energetic pattern, will be dissolved, will be transmuted in the presence of love. And as you step into the practice of strengthening yourself as the presence of love and reaching a hand out to others who are in that practice, then it's like shining sunshine on a puddle of water. The puddle of water disappears. It evaporates. It is transmuted. These old generational patterns, genetic patterns, thought disorders, when it gets safe enough to open them up in the presence of active love, there is a literal transmutation and freeing yourself of those energies. And that's what we're here to support you and every mind, heart, and being on the planet in doing.
Well, I would love to be a part of that.
Well, we're glad you are. Welcome and delighted, Colleen. Glad you're here.
All right, thanks.
All right, you have a blessed one. Lots of love.
You too. Bye-bye.
Extending love in your direction, holding the space.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You're most welcome and deserving, as Dr. Tim would say. Thank you, Dr. Tim.
I'm so glad you called, Colleen. We have another hand up, and it's Jamuna, 808. You're on the air. And while I've got you on the air, too, the reason podcast isn't working is because we are on vacation, and I did not bring the extra microphones and things like that. So
Podbean,
we should be back on Podbean when I get back.
Jeannie, you read my mind good.
Aloha. Welcome.
Aloha. That was exactly one of the questions I was going to ask, but I just wanted to acknowledge, man, I came in a little bit Hawaiian time late, but that's okay. I came in at the perfect timing to hear the beloved sibling before me talking about some things, and it hit me because, in the story, my mom was an alcoholic. I had a problem with alcoholism, but I'm soon to be 5 years sober. And a lot of the things you guys talked about resonated with me, and it was good to hear. So just beautiful. It's just good to listen to some of the things that you said. It was beneficial for sure. And I just wanted to
We're all in this together.
I acknowledge it. And I guess I guess this is something that's coming up in the. Maybe you could support me. Maybe point me to. There's this thing that a reoccurring kind of like interesting pattern in this dream storyline is that Jamuna is like too strong. Like I'm very strong, and it can bother other egos. really it cannot bother the Son of God. But and I don't know why it's coming up right now, but I guess there's something like when you were talking about like when people put like their own kind of labels on you, like I think you were saying, I forget, it was like something like when people put things on you, like I don't know. Oh, I'm not doing anything. That's okay. But or you'll start taking on other things like I guess what I'm getting to is that why have I gotten this message? Or what? Like,
well, here would be my input.
Okay.
You know, one of the I go through in the codependence work that we do. I go through what I call the pseudo solutions of the non-being mind. There are about a dozen or so of them. The number one, like by far, by a country mile, the number one solution is if I could just figure this out. And, you know, I mean, I can be in a workshop with 100 people, and I could say to those 100 people, what age are each of you? Add all the numbers up in the room, minus 5 years for each person in the room, and I'd have the number of years that people in the room have been trying to figure it out. And you can't figure it out. It can't be done. But what you can do is apply forgiveness to it. And what happens when you apply forgiveness to it is that construct in the mind collapses until there's simply no energy behind it anymore to create disturbance of any kind. So I'd look back at all the times when people said you were too strong and all the different ways they said it. They might have said you're bullying or you're controlling or whatever that looked like, you're manipulating, whatever kinds of ways people talk about someone who comes on strong. You may find that there are some worksheets to do on maybe bullying or using bullying as a defense or, you know, being pushy or overpowering people. That might be an aspect of the work that you need to do, but each aspect that you take, as you collapse those constructs in your mind, you'll be freed of it, and when you're freed of it, you'll drop the energy that inspires other people to rush in and tell you how that's what's wrong with you, if you get what I'm saying. So it can't be figured out, but it has to be forgiven. You know, when you start to look at, you know, just take the generational influences. You know, I've been around, let's say in my family system, if I go back 30 generations, there are about 1.6 billion people in my genes. If you go back 30 generations or 1.6 billion people in your genes, if we meet and we start exchanging energetic patterns, who knows out of those 3.2 billion people between us, what all the dynamics are energetically that are literally just by our presence in the world, sending out actual, literal, high energy waves to each other. Nobody can figure that stuff out. But this genius, Yeshua, 2,000 years ago said, here's how you can transmute it. First of all, you get the perceptual constructs of your mind trying to figure it out of the way by identifying the goal that's driving your mind right now and canceling it. And then you breathe and you simply bring love present to whatever underlies that. And again, just like the puddle dissolves, is evaporated in the presence of the sun, any kind of untoward energy that we hold, genetically or otherwise, in the presence of active love, if we get to the direct energy by simple exposure to love, it's like sun to water is active present love to trauma. Those things dissolve. The key is being able to get the underlying energy to come forward, and that piece of the puzzle that Yeshua presented 2,000 years ago is just, it's monumental. And so this sounds like, because you have brought this issue up before, it sounds like this might be one of your 77 times 70 worksheet issues. And I'd support you just putting the pen to the paper, going for it, making sure you're breathing. You know, you've done the still point breathing. Make sure you keep your breath moving, and just let that stuff go. Be like Elsa in Frozen and let it go.
All right, that sounds like a plan. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have all the worksheets printed out. That sounds good. It came to the surface because it wants to be healed. That's why. You know.
That's it. That's the beauty of it, and it can't come to the surface till we're ready to heal it, until we've got the vitality to heal it. And so, and I'm listening to your voice tones when I think back to when we first connected. What word did I use? I hear a brightness in your voice that previously seemed like it was muted. That's the only way I can describe it. Like there's a new aliveness, a new clarity, a new something in you that wasn't in you back when we connected first several months ago, and you know the times we have connected. So you know, I'd say you're at a new level of vitality and ready to do a new level of work. So holding the space for it, joining you in it.
Yeah, you know, I hope I didn't. I don't know. This is another thing. I worry sometimes. At the same time, I want to be strong. At the same time, I worry. And then sometimes people say I'm too sensitive, so I need to work on that too. You know, I might have come off a little wrong way in the beginning. And like you said, and with the other siblings, you know, what was it? Release the guilt. Like, I don't know, but I forget. It's I kind of get like. I'm not. Yeah.
So, where has guilt expressed in your life? Where have you found that's expressed throughout your life?
Well, in financial debt, that's one. That's a confirmation of I'm lacking, which is guilt. What else? So, you know, especially when I drank, relationship conflict. Because it was exasperated by the alcohol.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. Sometimes anger, definitely. Like sometimes, well, a lot. Anger is a big theme in the family dynamic. So I would just like say it as it is, rather than pause. So that would cause guilt because it's coming from the place of the guilt, like, rather than a place of guidance, you know what I'm saying? Like going
beating people up with the guilt.
Yeah, like that's beating people up with the guilt. Let's see.
What happens with your breath as you think about that? Say that.
Regret? What do I think about regret?
No, I'm asking what happens when you think about this beating people up with the guilt. Where did your breath go as you said that and as you contemplated that?
It feels stuck.
So one of the things that happens is...
No, it just feels like it's just halted, like it's like scared. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, perfect worksheet right there. And what's the goal that drives that? And, there could be a wide variety of goals, and it's really important when doing the worksheet to fine-tune the goals so I have just the right goals. So the goal in that situation might be, that I felt insecure and I wanted to win. It might be I wanted to look good. It might be I want people to approve of me. Each of those goals would produce a different healing result in regard to that sort of situation. And each of those worksheets might be the key one to collapse that whole structure in your mind. Remember that the whole objective of forgiveness is my mind creates this structure that is painful for me. And what I want to do is to get to the root of the energetic pattern that holds the pain and dissolve it.
Yeah.
And that's where the skill of identifying precisely what the goal is so important. And the best way I know to determine what the goal is if I look at a given situation. You know, it was back 10 years ago and I was drinking and I was out with this person that I'd been dating and we had a big blow up and a big fight. And so if I looked at that whole situation, and I'm now going to do some forgiveness around it, if I were to say to myself, the ideal outcome that I would have loved to have had in that situation is, and it might look like, gee, that Bill, instead of becoming enraged with me because I had a slip of the tongue that have brought up offense in him, I would have liked Bill to have just held a space for me. That might be the goal that cleans that whole structure out of your mind. Or it might be that, you know, when Charlene was sitting beside Bill and I really puked on Bill and he kind of puked back on me, gee, I wish Charlene had stepped in and just said, hey guys, why don't you take a breath and remember that you cherish each other. That might be the goal that collapses the projection that needs to be dissolved and gets me to the root energy that's maybe been going on in my bloodline for 20 generations, who knows? And as I allow that, when I cancel that goal and collapse that construct, and that literally, you know, it's kind of a nasty image, but it's the perfect image of how forgiveness works. You know, we all saw the 9/11 towers come down. When I think of a pained perception in my mind as being a construct like those towers, the thing that builds that tower up is a goal that I hold. And when I cancel that goal, that tower collapses, just like the 9/11 towers collapsed, literally into their own footprint. Those towers collapsed, and that's what happens with my perception. And if at the moment where I do cancel that goal, I'm breathing, and I allow that to just collapse deeply into me, then underneath that is where I find what it is that needs to be transmuted. And it might be something, you know, 20 generations old. It might be something that happened in utero. It might be something that went on when I was 3. It doesn't matter. I don't need to, and I can't figure it out, but I can forgive it.
Yes. I like this, Michael.
Yeah, and it's interesting in the Aramaic, you know, everywhere we hear the Greek scriptures translating saying, Jesus said, forgive your brother 77 times. He never said that. There are 2 words that are always missing in the Greek translations in the Aramaic. And that is, he never would have said, forgive your brother. He would say, forgive as to your brother. So if I have a brother that brings something painful up in me, it's not about me forgiving him. It's recognizing that what he brought up in me, my pain, is what needs to be forgiven. And so by using the reality management forgiveness process, I'm collapsing that construct in my mind, and that's the act of forgiveness. Forgiving as to my brother. What my brother's resonated and shown me belongs to me.
We're all joined no matter what. There's no way of getting away from it.
All right, dear heart. Well, we're holding the space, and we're out of time. So thank you for joining us. Everybody, thanks for being here. Colleen, we especially extend our love in your direction. We're glad you've reached out. And thank you, Jamuna, for joining us, too. Blessings.